Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another Australian Indian Radio's Facebook Daily Life. Hey, it's Friday. But tell you what, Friday doesn't feel like Friday anymore these days because there's nothing happening. Even at our building here, normally we have lots of people, lots of activities. They start happening around Thursday night, and we can see lots of people coming in on Fridays. But these days we don't see all that. We do see a number of people do still come in because it is still Friday. So let's look at Friday and also looking at the weekend. Let's see what the weather is going to be looking like. And with that, we'd like to welcome Dilraj.
Good morning, everyone. Weather forecast for the rest of Friday is maximum of 26 degree. Brisbane area is mostly sunny. Winds west to southwesterly 15 to 20 kilometers per hour, becoming light in the early afternoon, then becoming southeasterly 15 to 20 kilometers per hour in the evening. Chances of rain are 0%. Fire danger is high. Sun protection is recommended till 2:30 p.m. UV index predicted to reach 6, that is high. And Todd Smith from the Bureau of Meteorology says dangerous conditions will persist tomorrow. So let's hear from Todd.
So currently areas between Darwin and Adelaide River out in the rural area are experiencing extreme to catastrophic fire weather conditions. We've currently got temperatures in the mid to high 30s out there. The relative humidity is down in single figures, and we've been recording wind gusts over 60 kilometres per hour out in that rural area. So these very dangerous fire weather conditions are going to persist for some time yet. They'll persist right through this afternoon before starting to ease a little on in this evening. A fire weather warning for severe fire danger still remains in place tomorrow for the Western Top End, the Carpentaria District, Katherine and also the Gregory. Whilst the winds might be a little bit less tomorrow, it's still going to be very dry. It's still going to be very dangerous come tomorrow. As we go into Saturday, the winds will ease a little further with the humidity increasing a little further as well. However, for that area between Darwin and Adelaide River, still expecting severe fire dangers in that area where the fuel loads are higher, and also where we will still have the strong enough winds and the dry enough air to produce dangerous conditions. So whilst the trend over the weekend is easing and is leading towards less dangerous conditions, it will take some time before the conditions are really settled. We are expecting, though, that trend to continue into next week with easing winds and increasing humidity.
So there you are, up to date on Australian Indian Radio's daily Facebook Live update, and wonderful to see that people are on top of things there, because at Northern Territory, as we know about all those fires that are happening, there's some fires which are burning out of control as well. And you know what, whenever there is something mentioned in the news, then you start hearing a lot more about those things. Like if you hear about a fire broke out somewhere, and then you hear there's more, and there's more. And similar things with crime as well. The copycat crimes that we had seen before and incidences. So, that's why sometimes the things that are mentioned, you always start hearing more. Maybe it's the tuning out mechanism that it's always happening, but we don't see. Maybe it gets reported more when those happens, but right now, let's take a very quick look at news in brief.
Is one of 3 people who've died after fierce winds swept across Melbourne late yesterday, bringing down trees. A man and a woman were killed in separate incidents when trees fell on their cars. The boy died in hospital overnight after being hit by a falling tree in the city's east. Emergency crews have received more than 1,700 calls for help, and power was cut to more than 80,000 homes.
I was just about ready to watch the Penguin Parade for the first time online, and I heard a bang, the fence broken, the car smashed, and my big 60-foot tree across the road.
In New South Wales, 9 new coronavirus infections have been confirmed. All have been locally acquired, with 5 linked to a growing cluster in Sydney CBD. 4 of the new cases are close contacts of previously reported cases. The Immigration Minister is accusing foreign governments of meddling in Australia's multicultural communities. Alan Tudge will use a speech to the National Press Club today to raise concerns about the reach of foreign powers in Australia. The minister hasn't singled out a particular country, but the federal government is concerned that China is trying to consolidate its political influence in the Chinese-Australian community.
And that's the news briefing update. And when we talk about Minister Tudge from the Multicultural Affairs, he's been here many times. I have met him personally many times. He's trying to work hard in that field and in that arena. Today, multicultural communities in Australia is a very growing force. So, it's a force to be reckoned with. And of course, there's many things that are still happening behind the scenes, things that all the communities are worried about, things that they are not, I'd say, worried, but concerned about, and their concerns will be forwarded to their relative governments in coming weeks and coming months, as we know. That things regarding vilification and other things as well, religious rights and freedoms and freedom of speech and all these things, the social liberties that we enjoy in this land we call home. Well, right now we are fighting this pandemic, and we are going through the coronavirus and of course the COVID-19 cases. How well do we know about it? We know about the symptoms. We know, everyone knows, okay, clean your hands, keep 1.5 meters away and wear the mask if you can. But let's hear from our the Health Department and Chief Medical Officer, Dr. Janet Yang, as she talks about the symptoms and what and how does it actually affect us, what parts of the body, and how soon can it be completely gone, or is it ever completely gone?
For most people, COVID-19 is a mild disease, and that's a really good thing. But unfortunately, as we learn more about the virus every single day, we're learning that for a reasonable number of people, they don't fully recover. They have long-term consequences from the disease. And that's because this virus doesn't just affect the lungs. Unlike flu, this virus can affect every part of the body. That means that although someone might fully recover from the infection, they can have long-term consequences that affect not just their lungs, but their heart, their kidneys, their blood vessels, and their brain. And that can cause significant ongoing disease. Also, it's not just older people who are dying from this disease. The University of Glasgow did some superb research that they showed that on average, someone who died from COVID-19 on average lost 10 years of life that they would have otherwise expected to have. That's taking into consideration the age of that person, the sex of that person, and any chronic disease that person had. That means that there are quite a number of people who are dying much earlier than they would otherwise have been expected to die. This is a very, very serious disease, so I'm so glad that Queenslanders have taken on the challenge and they've really worked hard to make sure the disease doesn't get out into our community. It's really important we all continue to do that. So thank you to every Queenslander who's been involved.
So as he mentioned that, all the Queenslanders have always done the right thing, and it's wonderful to see that with the community help and with our responsible actions that we have managed to keep it down. Of course, there have been some new cases that have been reported, and very soon we'll bring the Premier on as he updates us on those new numbers right here in Queensland. But right now, let's hear from our Prime Minister.
We need to ensure that Australia, not just at a federal level, but across all of our governments, speak with one voice, act in accordance with one plan, consistent with the national interest as set out in Australia's foreign policy as determined by the federal government. And the new Australian Foreign Relations Bill does just that. Drawing on the powers available to in the Constitution, it enshrines those powers and provides very clear directions to do a number of important things. To establish the power to cancel and prohibit arrangements, memoranda, partnerships that are not consistent with Australia's foreign relations, that damage our foreign relations. It compels notification across all of those areas to ensure that we are aware when agreements, memoranda and other partnerships are being formed, to provide a transparency around all of those arrangements. Even in the midst of this global pandemic, we need to remember that some things are always important, pandemic or not. People's jobs, families, the well-being of our community, and importantly, protecting our environment. Every year, more than 8 million tonnes of plastics enter the world's oceans. That's more than one full garbage truck of plastic every single minute. Currently, Australia ships some 645,000 tonnes of our unprocessed plastic, paper, glass and used tyres overseas every year. This has to stop. Much of it, while legitimately recycled, and that's good, but too much of it, particularly plastic, it ends up in waterways, oceans, polluting our environment. At the National Plastics Summit early this year in March, I said, it's our waste, it's our responsibility, and that means we had to do something about it, and that we were going to take responsibility for doing just that. And today, I'm delivering on that promise through the work that Trevor Evans has done as the Assistant Minister here, together with Susan Lee, the Minister for the Environment. What we're doing is we're introducing landmark new laws that see Australia take real responsibility for the waste we produce and to establish a national industry framework for recycling in this country. We're getting really serious about this. The Recycling and Waste Reduction Bill, as it's known, for 2020, will phase in a ban on the exports of waste plastic, paper, glass and tyres. A ban that we're able to get all the states and territories, the premiers, the chief ministers and the ministers themselves to agree, getting everyone work together on this important topic. The ban will commence in phases and it starts on the 1st of January next year. Sure, I wish it was sooner than that, but what's important is we get everyone on the page together and to work together, and that's what we've been able to do. At the same time, this bill incentivises companies, gives them encouragement to take greater responsibility for the environment.
There you are, the two the important bills. One was on the foreign policies, one is on the plastic and the other waste reduction, and the policies of banning the exports of those commodities that, as he talked about, that he needed to get all the territories and all the states on board before the rule gets implemented. But right now, as I said before, that we were waiting for the Premier's release to come through, and it has just come through. And let's catch on with that update of the new cases or the current status in Queensland. So let's join the Premier.
All right. Okay, good morning, everybody. All right, today I can report that we have 3 new cases in Queensland. All 3 are linked to the Academy, the Corrections Academy. So we have 2 new cases of people living on the Gold Coast at Pimpama and 1 new case at Forest Lake. This takes our active cases to 20. Our total confirmed cases now is 1,113, and the number of tests in the past 24 hours has been 21,653, which is amazing. So I still want to stress to everyone, it's absolutely very important that if you have any symptoms, please go and get tested. And it's perfect time over the weekend. If you are a little bit concerned, please go and get tested, because what Dr. Young will also mention to you is that in these cases the symptoms have been very mild in people. So we don't want to have virus being circulated out in our community, so it's very, very important that if you have any mild symptoms, please go and get tested over the weekend. I can also confirm, we said yesterday from the trainer, the recruits and his associates, we had 25 people to be tested. In good news, they have all come back negative. But what we're doing is we're actually testing all of the 200 people now linked to that Corrections Services Academy. So we'll be updating you over the weekend about the results of those tests. Because we now have a couple of people who have tested positive to COVID on the Gold Coast, we are going to be taking some further immediate actions, and Dr Young will explain these in further details. But coming into effect from 8 a.m. Saturday, we are going to extend those limits of people inside your homes to 10 people and those gatherings outside to 10 on the Gold Coast, and the same restrictions we put in place for aged care, for hospitals and disability service providers will also cover the Gold Coast as well. We have to take this cautionary approach. I think everyone would agree. We acted very swiftly when it came to those earlier cases with the Brisbane Youth Detention Centre, and we know that people travel a lot from the Gold Coast to Brisbane, so now it makes absolutely perfect sense to extend that. So Dr Young will go into further details about that. I also just want to address the issue of schoolies. Now, of course, we know we are in a different time at the moment, and of course the world's going through a global pandemic and things aren't as they would normally be. And can I first of all commend all of our teachers out there, the students, and the fact that we actually have people attending our schools in Queensland. There has not been those huge disruptions to classroom education that we have seen in Victoria and we have seen in other parts of the world. And of course, I think there are even comments being made about in Europe at the moment, there are concerns about schools going back with large outbreaks of coronavirus in countries such as France overnight. So what I want to say to everyone is I want to thank everyone for the way in which our schools have been open and the way in that the whole education system has responded. So we've had to look at this issue very seriously and from a cross-agency perspective, but fundamentally, as Queenslanders know, we always listen to the health advice, and the Chief Health Officer has deemed the event of schoolies, it is a mass event over multiple days, is high risk. So the schoolies that we have come to know over the years will not be able to go ahead in that form this year. This is a very tough decision, but it is also a decision that Dr Young will talk about, has been also discussed at AHPPC about mass events that are held across the country. So not just Queensland, across the country. And this is a mass event. It poses high risk. It's high risk to not only the people that attend, all of the young people, but also the people they come in contact with, and of course their families and their friends and their grandparents. So we've had to take that very tough decision. So there will be, unfortunately, no concerts, no organised events, because there can be no mass gatherings. Look, I've had a couple of detailed conversations with the Mayor of the Gold Coast, Tom Tate. He fully supports the advice from the Chief Health Officer, and I thank him for that. And I hope parents can understand and students can understand that this event cannot go ahead in this format this year. So we will be, the Chief Health Officer and the Director-General of Education will be writing out to all of the schools to inform the schools, and the Chief Health Officer and the Director-General of Tourism will be writing out to all accommodation providers. However, we also know that our tourism sector does need support. So just as any other person can go along and book accommodation, people are welcome to continue to do that in those small groups right across Queensland. And families will be looking at booking their accommodation, and there is nothing wrong with small groups of people finishing school booking somewhere close to where they live as well, because as long as they actually abide by those rules and regulations that are set in place for hotel accommodation, then there is nothing to worry about. But it's a tough year for everyone, and hopefully things will get better by the end of next year, and we can have a double celebration. But we are in a world pandemic, and I just hope everyone understands that. I know that Minister Di Farmer and Minister Grace will also be talking to young people about other ways in which they can commemorate the fact that they have actually finished Year 12, and they'll be talking to young people about some other options and ideas around that. It has been a tough year for everybody, and I thank all of the Year 12s for the work that, well, the struggle really that they've had to go through this year with school being closed and then open. But we've had to make these decisions because it is about the health of everyone. So I hope everyone accepts that difficult decision, but it is the right decision, and it is absolutely based on the best health advice that we can give you at this time. So I'll hand over to the Deputy Premier and then Dr Young. Thanks, DP.
And so there you are, the latest update. No schoolies, eh? Well. Well, as he mentioned, that it is probably in the best interest of everyone, and of course getting Mayor Tate on the side from Gold Coast. As we know, Gold Coast always is the biggest beneficiary of the Schoolies Week. Everyone goes and books out there. And as he mentioned that, you can go together with your families and have some time off, or go to some of the resorts and things like that, as long as you are within those rules and regulations and within the boundaries. So, no schoolies as we know it, because there is no mass gathering that's allowed. So that goes, cuts right across all the organizations, be it religious functions, be it community events. So no mass gatherings, and number limited to home or park gathering is in a group of 10 only. Well, right now, let's go and look at some of the news, which we will come to later on, but let's go today. And today we have an interview. Well, right now, under the pandemic situations, what's happening is everyone's staying home, and the buying patterns of people have changed a lot as well. And as we know that there are many people these days who are now shopping online. And, someone who never did shop online, I, for one, never liked it, but, there's no other way to do it these days. So new research reveals the impact of COVID-19 on buying and selling behavior. New research reveals that average Australian household is sitting on an estimated 5.8 thousand worth of pre-loved items. Now, this is the items that they could probably put on eBay or something like that and sell them. The value of marketplace trading in Australia could be worth $46 million. Gumtree's second-hand economy report shows plenty of ways for Australians to trade, even get some extra cash and save some time and money, and of course those landfills. So, the second-hand economy is revealed, and the report is out now, so you can get that report as well. The 10th annual report was released by Australian online marketplace. Gumtree reveals that Australians could make an average of about 5,800 per household, with approximately 19 unwanted or unused items lying around the house. So that's why, you can never have enough shelving in your house, and you can never have enough storage space. Whatever storage space you get, you will always fill it up, and that's what always happens. Well, today with me, joining via phone, unfortunately we couldn't get her into the studio, is Amanda Behere, and she is the spokesperson from Gumtree. She was appointed the head of marketing at Gumtree in December 2018, and having previously held the role of a director of brand marketing and communications at travel website Expedia. Before joining Expedia, Behere was What If Group's head of consumer and trade marketing. So, ladies and gentlemen, with that, we'd like to welcome Amanda to the studios.
Thanks for having me on.
So, Amanda, could you tell us about the second-hand economy report? So, what is this report, and what have we learned so far on that report?
Now, according to the report, Australians are buying and selling quite a bit more in the second-hand economy. 42% of Australians say they're now more likely to sell items through the second-hand economy due to COVID-19. So increased unemployment and economic uncertainty are fueling people to be savvier with their personal finances. Beyond the money and savings to be made, Gumtree's second-hand economy report has also shone a light on the increased desire for people to be environmentally conscious, with 41% of people having sold their possessions to reduce their contribution to landfill as well.
So, Amanda, when we talk about the second-hand economy and buying and selling in that, so why are people, buying and selling in this platform or the second-hand economy?
The second-hand economy in Australia is booming.
I believe we might have lost it there. So, Amanda, once again, I'd like to ask you, the next question is, what are the most commonly sold items on this platform?
Now, according to the report, Australians are buying and selling quite a bit more in the second-hand economy. 42% of Australians say they're now more likely to sell items through the second-hand economy due to COVID-19. So increased unemployment and economic uncertainty are fueling people to be... Some of the most commonly sold items on Gumtree include things like furniture and home decor, clothing, electronic goods, games and toys.
So there you are. And how can the second-hand economy support Australians financially? I mean, to what degree can they expect to get, financial gains out of what's being lying around the house?
The second-hand economy is a great support for Australians financially because it's both a great place for both buyers and sellers. So buyers can save money and sellers can make extra cash. Now, Aussies can stand to make an average of $5,800 per household. 41% of Aussies are also likely to spend that money they made from the second-hand economy to help ease the burden of general household expenses, with 26% saying they'll use it to reduce some of their debt. On the buyer side, the second-hand economy can just be as lucrative, with 43% of Australians estimating they'll save almost half the cost by purchasing used goods over brand new.
Oh, that is wonderful news there as well. So how can Aussies practice, safe trading at this time? As we know, we are going through a pandemic and a situation where, social distancing and everything's in place. So how can the Australians trade and be safe at the time?
Gumtree's introduced measures for safe and successful trading during COVID-19. So our best advice is to avoid direct contact and distance yourself by following a few of these safety tips. One is wash your hands before and after you meet up for a trade. Clean your items thoroughly before you sell and once you buy. Do a video inspection up front. Use our new contactless trade badge, which really signifies that you're adhering to COVID-19 safety precautions. Now, consider contactless delivery options via our partner Sendle, who can pick up and deliver door-to-door. Use our contactless payment options such as through PayPal, and of course remember to act responsibly.
And that is wonderful to know as well that the safe practices have been put in place. As we know, people like to go have a look at the items before they many times, so otherwise they can buy. So all this information and that report that we have talked about, where can people go to get more information and get their hands on that report?
To learn more and get more information about Gumtree's second-hand economy report, just jump onto gumtree.com.au.
Amanda, thank you so much for being on the show. I've been connecting and sharing that very wonderful and very insightful information with us and all our listeners. Thank you so much.
Thanks for your time.
So, ladies and gentlemen, that was Amanda Barry, spokesperson from Gumtree Australia. As I said before, that she was appointed the head of marketing of Gumtree in Australia in 2018, and she talks about a lot of the second-hand economy, because there are many things that we have sitting around in our houses which we can do without. So right now, ladies and gentlemen, it's time to go for a quick commercial break.
GlobeNet Reality, ग्लोबनेट रियलिटी 1989 से लेकर अब तक का विश्वसनीय और माननीय ब्रिस्बेन का रियल एस्टेट एजेंट है। उषा चंद्रा, जो कि ग्लोबनेट की डायरेक्टर है, अपने ग्राहकों को ईमानदार और एथिक सर्विसेज देती हैं। अगर आप ब्रिस्बेन की प्रॉपर्टी में पूंजी लगाना चाहते हैं और आप चाहते हैं कि आपकी प्रॉपर्टी को प्रोफेशनली मैनेज किया जाए, तो आप आज ही कांटेक्ट कीजिए उषा चंद्रा को। लैंडलाइन नंबर है 38654466 और मोबाइल नंबर है 0419775416। और आप प्रॉपर्टी की अधिक जानकारी और करंट अपडेट्स के लिए हमारी वेबसाइट पे लॉगिन कर सकते हैं। हमारी वेबसाइट है www.globnetreality.com.au। ग्लोबनेट रियलिटी आपका अपना लोकल रियल एस्टेट एजेंट है। हमारा पता है ग्लोबनेट रियलिटी, शॉप नंबर 5, 2281 Sandgate Road, Bundal, Queensland. GlobeNet Reality. Real estate is our world.
And it definitely is the world. But right now, let's go and look at some of the other news. Well, we know that at this point in time, no one is flying, including me. Yes, I feel really, really grounded, as we all know that, normally by this time I would have gone to so many different places. So, Flight Centre, it is also having a turbulent times in the travel industry, and it's battling, so let's see whether, how it is coping up with that. So let's go to this report on Flight Centre and whether it can survive these turbulent times.
Flight Centre has plunged to its first loss since 1982 as the COVID-19 virus destroys the travel industry. The company lost $664 million in the full year, down from last year's $200 million profit. That's dwarfed by the near $2 billion loss posted by Qantas last week and the collapse of Swiss travel company STA. But boss Graham Turner is confident Flight Centre will make it to the other side of the pandemic. I spoke with him earlier. Graham Turner, welcome to the program.
Thank you.
You've written a joint letter with other tourism bosses to state premiers, calling them to open state borders. What states are showing the most resistance?
Look, I think it's fairly obvious that there are a few states that for some reason, they might think they have a good reason, but certainly my view is, and I think that's a view of a lot of different people, different businesses, different communities, is that we're going to have to live with this virus. It's not going to go away just because one state manages to contain it with very little community infection for a few months. It's here for good. A vaccine early next year hopefully will help suppress it, but I think we've got to learn to live with it.
So Queensland, is that dragging the chain here?
Look, Queensland is, but it's not only Queensland. It's WA and Tasmania, for example, as well. Even in New Zealand, which has been a great example that we have to live with it.
Well, you're not expecting leisure travel to return to pre-COVID levels until financial year 2023. Do you have enough cash to hang on until then?
Yeah, we believe we have. We're lucky because we're a public company. We have the ability to raise a lot of cash. There is a reasonable amount of cash around the world. The people who aren't so lucky, of course, are small businesses, SMEs, and the people who work for them, because there's going to be a lot of collateral damage here.
Do you think investors have the appetite to continue to buy up shares if you've got to raise more equity on the market?
Look, there is funding available. We're very liquid at the moment. We have a cash runway that we're pretty comfortable will last a couple of years with minimal revenue coming back.
When you say you can hang on for a few years, what will you look like at the end of it? How slimmed down will you be, and how many more jobs will have to go?
I don't know exactly that, but we started with 22,000 people.
Well, he would if he had a crystal ball, won't he? But as we know that this kind of things do take place, and it's a tough call and a very, very tough decision that he has to take, and wouldn't like to be in his position at the moment, the CEO of Flight Centre, and that was Graham Turner. Well, right now let's cross over straight to Wisconsin, and of course that shooting, as we know, Dr. Andre Perry of the Brookings Institute discusses the latest unrest after the police shoot out in there. Let's go to that report.
On Sunday afternoon in Wisconsin, police shot Jacob Blake multiple times in front of his children. It's believed the police were responding to a domestic incident. Blake remains in hospital, alive but partially paralysed.
He shot my son 7 times.
The shootings reignited unrest and led to violent protests in Wisconsin. 2 protesters have been shot dead and another wounded, allegedly by a 17-year-old who travelled from interstate. He's now in police custody. With a federal civil rights investigation into the shooting of Jacob Blake underway, the state's NBA team, the Milwaukee Bucks, has boycotted its playoff game in solidarity.
Despite the overwhelming plea for change, there has been no action. So our focus today cannot be on basketball.
Dr. Andre Perry is an author and fellow at the Brookings Institution. He joined me earlier from New York. Dr. Perry, what's the significance of the NBA boycott in response to this latest shooting?
Well, the response is really an indication that people know their value and they're willing to step out on their value. They're willing to do what it takes in order to incite change. Status quo is unacceptable, but this goes back historically for decades. And so at some point, employees and employers need to essentially state that enough is enough, and this is the NBA's showing of that.
Is the shooting of Jacob Blake likely to have the same wave effect across the US as we saw earlier this year with the murder of George Floyd?
I believe so. I think we will see a rise in protests leading up to the election, because we know that if you really want to have a change in policy, that it must be accompanied by protests, that policy is not just going to change on its own. In fact, after the incidents of George Floyd and the protests thereafter, there was a number of policy changes in different cities because of the protests. I foresee that continuing. And so this is just a long, drawn-out series of protests that is built to incite change in the White House and in policy.
America has lurched from tragedy to tragedy this year. In fact, you've got another potential disaster bearing down on you now with Hurricane Laura. It's the Republican convention this week with the looming presidential election. Politics is as toxic as it's ever been. Is this just a bad period in American history, or is it something more?
Yeah, I don't say anything is a coincidence. So I think that the lack of leadership, the lack of organization at the top.
And as you mentioned there before, that the policies don't change on their own, and you need to have protests, and that's the way they have learned that if they always ask for a change in the policy, unless you protest, it does not happen. So change in policy is what is driving for, and he's mentioned that he foresees this is going to be another long and drawn out process, and we'll see more protests happening there as well. Well, ladies and gentlemen, no, I don't always do this, but today I have a very special request for you, for each and every one of you. As we know that COVID-19 affects elderly people most. So there's an urgent call for older Queenslanders. If there has ever been a time to volunteer, and if you're always a community volunteer and you've always held true to your values, this is the time to come up. There's a call to arms has gone to Queenslanders aged 56 and over to help advance the University of Queensland's COVID-19 vaccine project. UQ Vaccine Project co-leader Professor Paul Young says phase 1 human trial in Brisbane would be expanded to help gauge the vaccine's safety among older demographics. At most, people are now aware COVID-19 appears to have a higher degree of disease severity in older individuals, he said. We are looking to ensure that vaccine candidates are safe and that the vaccine is safe to use in older people, and they're hoping that people of Queensland can really get behind and sign up as a volunteer to test the vaccine. On conducting and the expanded safety study, we'll be able to gather key data to inform the larger scale efficiency trials that our partners at CSL are planning to run in the near future. Deputy Prime Minister and Minister for Health, Stephen Miles, is supporting the call for more volunteers. Do it for Queensland, he said. The pandemic is the biggest challenge we've ever had to face. By taking part in these clinical trials, you will play a real role in saving lives. The extended phase 1 trial is being conducted at Nucleus Networks Brisbane Clinic and involves and needs another additional 96 participants. Nucleus Networks Principal Investigating Associate Professor Paul Griffin said Queenslanders aged 56 and over are now being asked to assist with that study. We are recruiting 48 volunteers who would be aged between 56 to 65 and another 48 volunteers aged 66 and over. We have a focused study on this age group, and we can generate more robust data that will help determine safety and effectiveness of the potential vaccine. We'd encourage anyone in this age bracket who would like to make a difference in this challenging time to get in touch to assess their suitability. So if you like to do that, and participants are generally required to be in good health, and any existing medical treatment needs to be stable. So, you need to go to nucleusnetwork.com/UQ or just call 1-800-243-733. So, as I said before that I don't always do this, but now today is my plea to anyone who falls in that age group, and if you are well, and if you'd like to take part in this survey, which is a groundbreaking research that's being done right here in Queensland, right here in Brisbane, and if you can make a real difference out to the people, people always talk about, okay, if there's anything I can do to help, this is the time. This is when you should put your hand up, come forward and assist. So that phone number once again is 1-800-243-733. So ladies and gentlemen, you too can make a difference to other people's life. Well, right now it's time to go and have a look at the events. Just a note with the events is that if you are planning on going to any of the events, please check with the organizers, as a lot of events have already been postponed or cancelled. So these are some of the webinars and seminars that are happening online. Please do join in to the webinars and contribute in whichever way you can. These are some of the functions and events that have been sent to us. And if you would like to send something of interest or any function or event that you might have that you'd like to share with us, I'm mindful that it might not be a face-to-face event, but it could be a virtual event, it could be an online seminar, a webinar, or just some info sessions. You're quite welcome to share the information with us, and we will share that with everyone. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining in. And as I mentioned before, that volunteers are being sought in those age group, 55 to 56, and then 66 and over. So you too can make a difference by being part of that research. Please do contact us if you need further information on that. So once again, it's been wonderful having your company. Don't forget that tomorrow morning by 10 a.m. I'll be here with the weekend special for you with a big roundup of everything that's happened around the week, and also taking up some of the topics that is of community interest. It's been wonderful having your company. So until tomorrow, be good, but most importantly, be safe.